It's time, guys. Roxy, Edis, and the evil Laplace are back. No, not Mushoku Tensei. Berserk of Gluttony. Yes, Berserk of Gluttony is here. Jokes aside, because obviously Edis and Roxy are not, like, native to Mushoku Tensei. I know their actual names. It is just kind of funny to have a series that has Edis, Laplace, Roxy, and yes, even mine from A Sentence of Bookworm is actually in this show. There's so many names in this show that seems a little bit too convenient that they're from, like, two very, very popular isekais just for some reason in here. But yes, I just got done with the first 3 episodes of Berserk of Gluttony. Honestly, a series coming into it I didn't really have much expectations for, but it was a really solid first 3 episodes. But let's just jump right into it. Berserk of Gluttony opens up in a world where at some point this goddess, Laplace, decided to bestow upon humans different skills. And yeah, it seems like there is quite an emphasis in this world that over time, that sort of became a separation of the haves and have-nots. If you have a really incredible skill that makes you useful to society, you're going to have a great life. But if you have a terrible skill, pretty much everybody's going to look upon you as dirt, essentially. A lot of children are abandoned because their skills were terrible. Well, yes, our main character, Fate, is one such individual. He was born with the skill Gluttony. And this just makes him really hungry all the time. And so he's constantly starving, his stomach's always growling, and yes, he's useless in society. Currently, he's been working for the Holy Knights, which is this organization that takes care of the people, protects them, and fights back monsters because they all have skills that are incredible. And he's pretty much just living under the boot of the Valeric family. And the Valeric family is one of 4 families that essentially keep peace and keep order amongst the people under the king. He's somebody that's just being used to take care of their roles and their responsibilities, and at the same time just treat like garbage. They find humor in just treating them like scum. And despite the fact that it seems like the Holy Knights are trash in this world, like they're terrible people because the Valeric family are so terrible, that's not like all of the Holy Order itself. We also have the Heart family, which one of the members is Roxy, and she's a really kind person. She's somebody that actually looks after Fate. Well, one night Fate notices some thieves, and he calls out to Roxy and lets her know about it. So she goes in there and she fights the thieves, and one of them decides to flee. And Fate's thinking to himself, no, I can't let this thief get away, otherwise it'll look bad to Roxy. And so he decides to attack the thief and manages to finish it off because it was already injured. At this point, his skill, Gluttony, finally activates. It actually absorbs all the skills and stats from the thief himself. It gives him the skill Identify and the skill Telepathy. And at first he's kind of confused by this, as Roxy comes up and he's able to suddenly read her thoughts. But he does realize that his stats are now really good. Like, wow, I can actually finally probably defeat monsters outside. So he goes to the store, gets himself a sword, which come to find out this sword is actually called Greed, and he's able to talk to it. And the two of them together go out and start slaying monsters. And Greed seems to know a lot about Gluttony. It seems like he's sort of similar in a way. He lets him know that unlike other people who kill monsters, get experience, level up, and get stronger, those with Gluttony just absorb their target stats and their skills. So he's just getting tons and tons of stats. And additionally, yes, a lot of different skills. After this, he starts working under the Heart family, thanks to Roxy kind of inviting her over to their family. Come to find out that her father died during this expedition to go out to slay monsters because this dragon appeared. And then at some point, Fate discovers that he has a extreme thirst for killing. Greed explains to him that now that he has fed his skill Gluttony with a life, the more he kills, the more it absorbs, the more it will thirst. So it kind of turns into one of those things where the more he eats, the more he'll desire. So this kind of forces him to go out at night and kill a bunch of monsters, and then at some point realize, I can't seem to quench this thirst. He has to get bigger and badder things that he has to kill. Additionally, Greed at some point mentions to him that he has reached a point where he can thus feed his stats that he has gained to the sword. Being that this sword is called Greed, it wants his stats. If he feeds all of his stats and basically resets himself, he'll make his sword stronger. However, if he chooses not to feed his stats to his sword, he will lose the right to be able to wield him. So being that this is his partner, he decides to do it. Then cutting forward, he gets invited by Roxy to basically sneak out of the mansion and go out and basically do some undercover surveying of the people. Come to find out that she's actually trying to look into this new monster that's appeared in the area. There's a lot of talk about this fact that there's a lot of monsters outside the town that are being slain, but their ears aren't collected, so they're assuming that there's some sort of lich or something in the area killing all the monsters, and thus the Holy Knights have to go out and deal with it. But we all know that, yes, this is in fact Fate. He's the one that's going out there killing all this stuff. So he's kind of afraid the idea that the Holy Knights are going to be sent out to kill him. During this whole ordeal, yeah, we get a little sense that the Valeric family are a bunch of jerks. They're super mean. They make the Holy Knights look bad. I'm assuming eventually they're probably going to try to take over the Heart family because yes, Roxy just lost her father, and nobody thinks that she can take over the family. And yes, Fate has pretty much dedicated himself to protecting Roxy because she's really nice. And that's pretty much where we've gotten with the story so far. They kind of just wrap up the third episode with the Valeric family with this kind of round table talking about how they're going to go to this area where all the monsters are at, which I'm assuming they're probably going to send Roxy Hart because, again, they want to get rid of Roxy and take over the family. So my thoughts on Berserk of Gluttony. Yes, jokes aside about the names, which is just kind of comical, I'm actually enjoying this show so far. There's a lot of emphasis on the idea of this sort of class system that's created by the idea of this god, Laplace, bestowing people skills. They have this shot at this orphanage at some point, and this nun is basically talking about how this Laplace bestowed skills upon people, blessed the humans with the abilities to have skills. And this child's like, I hate that. I hate the fact that I'm discarded. I'm an orphan now because my skill was terrible. This seems, I want to go back to the day before Laplace started bestowing these skills, because apparently back then, everybody was equals. And so it's kind of a hard situation to live in this world. And yeah, there's a lot of points throughout the show already where Fate is helping people and, yes, reflecting on his own life, that he spent most of his life before he unlocked his gluttony skill basically being useless, always being under the shoe of those that have power. And it seems like his father kind of bestowed upon him the idea of always smiling and always moving forward with happiness, because one day you'll find happiness. And it seems like he was right, because again, eventually he did find his skill. But that kind of plays into the trope that we have with this story, is the idea of the person with the worst skill possible, but yet somehow finds themselves to be OP. And that, yes, he kind of lived a lot of his life with this struggle, but at the same time, he never had to if he learned at some point how to utilize it. Now, my big curiosity that I have around Fate so far is he seems like a solid character. I like his personality. He's not too much like a ditherer. He's not too much like a whoa, I don't want to get near this kind of stuff. He seems very level-headed. But with a show like this, there's always that kind of struggle whether the show is going to get dark or not. Yes, the opening segment is him literally killing somebody, but he's kept to basically killing nothing but monsters after this point. But what they're spending a lot of time with is flagging this idea that his gluttony will no longer be controllable at some point. If he doesn't keep feeding it, and that hunger gets greater every single time he feeds it, Reed tells him that if he doesn't keep feeding it, at some point he'll either starve to death, or he will attack those around him. It's kind of this idea of like a vampire almost, in a sense, where, yeah, you can stop feeding off blood, and it'll make you weaker and you'll probably die, or you'll just become so enamored by thirst that you'll just lash out mindlessly. And so he does sort of have that fear of like, crap, I could attack somebody around me. I could attack Roxy. And I don't know if they're actually going to go that direction right now. It just kind of seems like he's abating it by just going out and slaying monsters. He's even having to decide to cover up his identity because, yes, people are going to notice and they're going to think that he's some sort of monster. So he's going to do this whole kind of killing the monsters under the guise of this masked guy that, you know, conceals his appearance, which doesn't seem too difficult because Roxy just changed her hairstyle and everybody didn't even know it was her. I always like that idea of like, suddenly she lets down the braids and everybody's like, oh, it's Roxy. Who could have figured? Well, somebody kind of figured it was her before, but because she was with Fate, which again, everybody should know who Fate is by now. They're like, oh wow, it's actually Roxy. It was dorky. I think the only thing that's kind of really bogging down the show so far is two aspects. One is that I think the show is moving a little bit too slow. I do appreciate taking the time to kind of progress Fate's relationship with Roxy, because again, I'm pretty sure that one of the main key story beats going to be, and probably the 4th or 5th episode, is this idea of the Valeric family taking down the Hart family. Because again, the Hart family is weakened because they lost a lot of their men, plus they lost their leader. But that aside, I think my only other real struggle that I'm having with the show is really the Valerics. That I just, from the first episode, kind of seeing them come into the scene, I'm like, holy crap, this Memo lady is just like the bee lady from Shield Hero. It's just like, oh, here's the evil guys. Oh, they're so evil. Look at how evil they are. Moving on, and then like they show up again, it's like, oh, they're so evil. They hate everybody. I can't wait until Fate has to beat them up. Cut forward, oh, they're still evil. They're kidnapping children to shoot arrows at them. Man, they're super evil. And it's at some point where every single time Valerics came on the screen, it's just like, okay, I get it, they're evil. Just move on. Like, we've established they're mean. Can we just move on with the story already? I just don't, I think the weakest point of the show so far is just really, I'm hoping this isn't the case. There's a possibility this writer's not very good at villain characters, and I think they're already establishing that. Maybe they'll get into something better going forward. I can at least appreciate the fact that the head of the Valeric family isn't, like, always malicious. Like, sometimes he's just like, okay, let's move on, which I kind of appreciate, that he's not as endlessly trying to be evil like everybody else is. Like, he does have a purpose that he's building towards, but it doesn't correct the fact that every time they're on the scene, it's just like, I want to skip forward because I really don't care. You're not doing anything with these characters besides making them super evil, because they're presenting this idea that they're so drunk on their power because they were bestowed great skills, whereas everybody else wasn't. And so they are important and nobody else is. I'll still hold my hope that they might actually do something interesting with them, but I don't have any expectations for that. My other kind of issue that I'm having is that Roxy doesn't seem like she has too much going for her as a character so far. It just seems like she's a really nice person and she's trying to be strong because her father's gone. It doesn't seem like they're really giving her much to her character so far, which that could technically change over time, so I'll be waiting for that. I am a little bit bummed by the fact that we did not have Mine show up. Mine's supposed to be the, like, the tan girl with the cool outfit and the big weapon. I seen her in the PVs and I seen her in the trailers, and I was like, that's the character I want. Like, she looks so, I love her design, so I was really hoping to see her, but unfortunately we didn't. Because again, the show's kind of moving a little bit slow. My other issue that I'm having with the show so far is the chemistry's kind of blah. Like, the character writing and chemistry is just kind of blah. Like, everything that we've had so far is Fate with Greed or Fate with Roxy. When Fate is with Greed, it's just kind of a partnership. And a lot of it's kind of them bickering back and forth, or they're talking when he's with somebody else, and so everybody thinks he's crazy because he's talking to Greed. And it's like, at some point, can you stop talking out loud in front of people? Like, do you not... Why aren't we getting this yet? Because it kind of just turns into that whole joke about the misunderstanding, because he tells Greed to shut up, and then Roxy's over here going, I'm sorry, did I say something to offend you? And he's like, no, that's not it. Hey, shut up. No, that's not what I mean. Hey, shut up. No, it's like, please stop. Like, can we stop with this joke? Are you that dumb? It's kind of frustrating. And then with Fate with Roxy, that chemistry is just, she's super nice, and he just follows her around and at some point decides that he wants to protect her. It doesn't seem like the character writing so far is doing much for me. That all said, it's a fine show. I think the bigger struggle that I'm having with the show is it is technically another one of those, I got the worst skill possible, but it actually is the most OP skill possible, and thus I consume tons and tons of stats and tons of skills and see how many tons of skills and stats I get. And at some point you're just kind of like, just give me a montage and then just move on. It's kind of like that whole scenario with the Reincarnated as a Sword, where you spend like over half an episode just nothing but him killing things and getting stats, or So I'm Aspire, so what? It's just like, at some point, it's just move on. Like, we get it, you're OP. At least it has a sort of reset mechanic in the idea that he has to then feed his stats to Greed. And so I'm guessing they'll probably turn this into a thing where he at some point feeds those stats to him and then immediately is separated from his weapon, and that just kind of puts him in a tight spot. But I don't know, we'll see. It's doing enough that it's intriguing me. I'm okay with the character so far, and I'm okay with the setup so far, and I'm kind of interested to see if it'll possibly get dark in the idea of Fate being forced to take lives, but I doubt it. Like, after these first 3 episodes, I'm already kind of getting a sense that we're probably not going to get very dark with this series. It just seems like it's not trying to push too heavy on subjects and whatnot. But who knows, maybe he technically did kill a guy who kidnapped a kid, and just so happens to have the conceal skill so that nobody can see what his super OP ability is. I love that. It's like, so the moment he's seen that guy with that girl, and he's like, oh, he's got a conceal skill. It conceals your skills. Yeah, that's convenient. We knew that he had to cover up what he could do. Anyways, that's my initial thoughts on Berserk of Gluttony. We'll see where it goes from here. It's got enough of my attention that I'm not ready to throw it out yet, but we'll see. But that's my thoughts on the first 3 episodes of Berserk of Gluttony. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure that like button down below, comment. Let me know what you're thinking of this series so far. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button to check out my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, membership button down below. Greatly appreciate everybody does, and y'all take care.